Let me say good evening to everyone. And at this time we will open up with prayer. Heavenly Father, for this beautiful day that you have given us, we would like to say thank you. When we woke up this morning, there was no doubt, Lord, who was in charge of this world. We ask that you do a special blessing on our board meeting members this evening and our board. We ask that you a special blessing for those who have gathered with us at our board meeting this evening. We ask, Lord, that you continue to show your grace and your mercy for those who were in the path of Helene and those who were in the path of Hurricane Milton. Help them to realize, Lord, that you never leave us and that you will never forsake us. And this evening, for those who may be going through sad hours of bereavement, we ask that you calm their spirits and realize that you are too powerful and you are too good to make a mistake. And Heavenly Father, for this day, not asking for anything, but thanking you for your goodness and your mercy. And for all these blessings in your precious name, and we count it all done. Amen. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adopt the proposed agenda.
So moved. Second, sorry.
The motion was made by Todd, and it was seconded by Matt Irick.
Or either one.
Either one. Let's get straight for Wendy so she can put in her minutes correctly. Okay. Is there any discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? The agenda has been received. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which has the meeting minutes from October 1st, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Motion was made by Dr. King and second by Tom McDaniel. Any question or discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? The minutes stand approved. We do not have anyone here from the media this evening. However, we have some community people that are here, and we do thank you for your attendance. We hope that you will come again to our school board meetings. Next on our agenda is the introduction and recognition and celebration of our school program recognitions. Let me take this opportunity to say that we are so glad, not only when our students individually do well, but when our schools also do well. We have two school recognition programs this evening, and
Ms. Hallie, Dr. Goodwin, board, tonight we are recognizing two schools with awards. Please come forward when I call your names and stay up front for a photograph. Our first recognition goes to the Continuous Learning Center. Will Dr. Karen Oldham and CLC students Owen Kershaw and Angel Tabor please come forward. CLC was awarded a 2024-2025 recycling education grant from the Department of Environmental Services for $1,400. Caitlin Ferretra, sweet, with the State Department of Environmental Services is also here tonight to celebrate this grant. The CLC staff and students will use the grant funding for two projects called Don't Let It Waste and Watch Us Grow. We will be purchasing recycling bins, indoor gardening books, metal, paper, plastic, and glass sets, and Rainpoint hydroponics for 10 classrooms. They'll use the community resources in conjunction with the grant to help with soil from Modern Turf and plants, seeds from Lowe's and Bee's Greenhouse for fruits and vegetation. They'll be learning how to grow vegetables, herbs, and fruits indoors, and then we'll relocate them outside to their outdoor classroom during the spring. Please join me in congratulating them on this innovative project. CLC staff, come on down. Come on, Cheryl. Thank you so much and congratulations. Our next recognition goes to Lugoff-Elgin High School. Will Assistant Principal Jeff Caraway please come forward? Lugoff-Elgin High School received a $10,000 donation from Pilot as part of a celebration of the Lugoff Pilot Travel Center's remodel as a part of the company's New Horizons initiative. Pilot donated $10,000 to help fund the Lugoff-Elgin High School Spark Camp for the rising ninth grade students. Spark is a 3-week summer transition camp intended to assist identified rising ninth graders who may benefit from front-loading high school ready skills through Project Read, math reteaching, college and career ready activities, soft skills, socio-emotional learning, and overall acclimation to the high school climate before the start of the school year. Spark students are also offered before and after school tutoring in English and math or in any class needed for graduation credit. Students who complete the entire program will receive a High School 101 credit. Thank you to Pilot for this generous donation to the impactful program at Lugoff-Elgin High School. Thank you so much.
We have not had anyone to sign up for public forum. The next item on our agenda is for board policy review. Okay. For those who came this evening, if you would like to leave, you can leave at your own will. If not, we would love to have you to stay to the end, but if you need to leave, please feel free to do so at this time. Okay. It happened.
Good evening, Ms. Halley, members of the board, Dr. Goodwin. Tonight, we're bringing you updates to policy JICJ related to student use of personal electronic devices during the school day. The revised policy electronic devices during the school day. The state board adopted this policy in September. This policy was developed in compliance with the General Appropriations Bill H5100 of 2024, Proviso 1.103, the South Carolina Department of Education Anti-Bullying/School Safety. The proviso states to receive state funds allocated for state aid to classrooms, a school district shall implement a policy adopted by the State Board of Education that prohibits access to personal electronic communication devices by students during the school day. For purposes of this proviso, a personal electronic communication device is considered to be a device not authorized for classroom use by a student, utilized to access the internet, Wi-Fi, or cellular technology, telephone signals. A committee made up of district administrators, principals, and teachers reviewed the model policy and made changes applicable to our district, including assigning discipline consequences for violations of the policy. A few things to note. Personal electronic devices refer to cell phones, smartwatches, tablets, gaming devices, and any other wearable technology. School day is defined as the period of time that a student enters a school building or courtyard from their arrival until afternoon dismissal at the end of the instructional day. The policy requires students to turn off devices and have them stored in a book bag or locker. If explicitly required by a student's IEP, medical plan, or 504 plan, students will be allowed to access their personal electronic device for medically or educationally necessary purposes. The committee also discussed the importance of communicating the new policy to all stakeholders, including staff, students, and families. The district plans to use social media, school newsletters, websites, parent and student emails, posters, and calls to distribute the information. To comply with the law, the policy must be updated or must be implemented by January of 2025. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. So, in my opinion, this is a disastrous policy. We've talked about this. This is state government at its best, not understanding what happens in a classroom, as simple as a teacher saying, put your devices away. The big one that I caught was, I'm going to offend a lot of you guys by saying this. I'm an Android user. I don't believe in Apple. I believe it's against Jesus. But for all those Apple folks that love it, they all wear the wristwatches. How do you keep up with that? I mean, so think about this. All the Apple watchers that have the Apple watches on their wrist that look at their text, email, you don't know if it's a Fitbit or a watch or whatever. And how do you? And the other thing that caught my attention was about after school sports, leaving it up to administrators. I'm going to say this for the record, and then Dr. Goodwin, please chime in. The state has put us in a very bad situation, in my opinion, and I would think this would be better handled in the classroom than a policy. And I think this can go very badly, very quickly with all the side things. Oh, you have an IEP. Oh, you have a medical condition. All these things keep added to it. It can go badly quickly. I'm going to vote for it because I know we have to. I don't like it.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Just very quickly, I hope that if any of our media representatives are listening or peruse the minutes or whatever they have access to, that they know that our district did not create this policy. This was something that was introduced at the last minute with the budget cycle here as a proviso, probably to get some other things passed. And it's put us in a predicament. I would like to just piggyback on what Mr. McDonald has says. As a principal, I'm like, oh my, how in the world am I going to deal with this? How will I even begin to accommodate this policy? And I know they'll conduct their full due diligence to do so. On the flip side, I've heard from a lot of teachers about it, and it's kind of a catch-22. They're not against it simply because they feel it will lessen the disruptions in the classroom. And you all seen the plethora of folks posting on their putting these little tick mark charts as to how many times they were interfered with during the day or during a lesson by an electronic device. The other thing I know that creates a lot of angst in the community is, Mr. Hopkins, Blackman, Dr. Goodwin, surely other educators, back when I was a high school administrator, all I had to worry about was a pager. I couldn't imagine having to worry about everything we have now.
Well, unless you're in Israel, those things would blow up.
Yeah, true. But the problem is, we fast forward to now, where they're considered. I mean, it's an appendage for the generation we have now. They're digital natives. Some of them are going to have some anxiety from it. They're going to have some serious. We're going to have some visits to guidance and maybe mental health because of it. And I'm not being facetious about that. But the other problem is, back in my earlier principalship days, we didn't have the emergency situations we do now, the active shooter stuff as much. And there's something in the paper every day about violence and school violence and issues that happen at school. So I know a lot of parents and community members are worried about, how does my child contact me? How in the world, if there's a shooter situation or a horrible, my child's in an emergency situation, how are they going to reach me? What about childcare? What if I pick my child up after school and they call me to let me know what time to pick them up if they have an activity? Lots of angst about that, and I can sympathize with that. The only thing I know, just from the credibility of our teachers and especially the administrators who are going to have to monitor and abide by this forced policy, is that they're going to do as good as they can. And I plead with the public to just be patient. This thing goes into effect in January. We have no choice, as Mr. McDonald indicated, and as Mr. Ferris has indicated. This is something that was put on us and left with us to deal with the aftermath of it. But all I ask is that for our public to be patient. We're going to do everything we can to make sure our kids are safe, that they're well kept, that they're fed, and that they can learn like we always do. And if there's an emergency, we have Officer Bowling over there who does an exemplary job monitoring that for us and helping assist with that, as well as our law enforcement community and our administrators on site. So all I'll ask for the public is just be patient with us as we work through accommodating this policy and carrying it out the best that we can without having a choice in the matter.
And let me pick it back on that. What is the grace period for this? I saw the parameters, first offense, second offense. Is it first offense day one, or is there a grace period of kind of helping folks get acclimated to that?
That is something we talked about with our administrators, that we'll need to have gentle reminders for a little bit of time. I don't think we set those parameters in stone in terms of, is it going to be 1 week, is it going to be 2 weeks? But we talked, it's kind of similar to our cell phone policy, or not, our tardy policy. The first week, we don't really count tardies because we're trying to find our way to classes and things like that. I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on our media push and really talking to teachers and doing a lot of trying to front load. This is the expectation. This is the requirement. This is the law. And then planning on there being a grace period that makes sense, common sense. I don't have a time frame.
Just for clarity, under definitions, under school day C, I just had a question about that last sentence. This policy may also apply to school buses, field trips, and athletic events at the discretion of a supervising district employee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around what's that saying to us.
So if I have an in-house field trip, okay, we're probably not going to let them use cell phones because it's an in-house field trip.
Okay.
If I'm taking a group of high school students to go on a college tour, on a bus, we're in Myrtle Beach at Coastal, or we're at College of Charleston or something, and they're going to want to take pictures of the school. They're going to want to do notes. And so we would allow the use of cell phones, to listen to music, even though it's during the school day, this allows us to allow cell phones on field trips, going to athletic contests. We can allow that. But we also want to understand that it's not a guarantee. It's just something that there needs to be a discussion about it so that we're using them for what purpose we can, but not going over the top, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Just follow up. The concern I have with all of this, and Dr. Goodwin, I really would love to hear from you on this. So, Dr. King, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit. Okay, you were a great principal. I mean, at one point, you were a great principal. Eventually, yeah. Every leader is different, and they perceive the guidelines as different. Some see it as just black and white. Some see it as a lot of gray. And what I see this policy is a whole lot of coaching up to cover the gray in between. So if Dr. King, who is a great principal, I was joking with you, who sees, okay, I see what my parameters are, but you have some leaders that go, no, it's just black and white, so we'll have parents galore in front of us. I think the obligation from us as leaders is to say, we're coaching you up on every aspect of this, because it's, as Dr. King said, this is a policy that's coming down from the state and not us. And it's a bad policy in my opinion. I think it could be better, but because they've hamstrung us a little bit, we need to give a lot of guidance. So I'm throwing that back to you.
Well, one of the things that we have been talking with high school and middle school principals, because that's mainly where this applies, because the elementary, we do the complete ban, that you don't have them out. But at the middle and high schools, we had a couple of our schools actually go ahead and roll this out at the beginning of the year. And they did that actually, a couple of them actually have done it multiple years and have done it very successfully. And I'll pick on Casey Falconberry at Camden Middle School. But again, the way he and his staff approached it at the beginning was, this is the rule. We're not gonna just hammer people over it, but we're gonna enforce the rule. And, we're gonna take it first until the end of the day. Then we're going to inconvenience mom and dad a little while, a couple times. And by then you ought to get the message. And if not, you're just being belligerent about it. And, that's what we have pleaded with our principals, to use that same common sense approach. We don't want to become the cell phone police, but also we don't want on the third offense for Mr. Ferris to be having a hearing over a cell phone. We want that child in school, not dealing with the phone. As I've shared with some of you individually, the Administrators Association lobbied heavily for alternatives in this plan. And we were basically told no. We felt like it ought to be a graduated use, maybe very restrictive in the middle school. In the high school, maybe you can use them at lunch, maybe between classes, like some of our schools have been doing. But, trying to teach that responsibility over time. And we were given a firm and sound no. So, it is what it is. We have it. I think we've taken every liberty that we're allowed to take. When the committee came together, I think they all saw it the same way, that they don't want to be the cell phone police. They want to teach, and they want to have schools. So that's going to be our approach to enforcement. We will do it with fidelity, but we also won't do it with a 20-pound sledge.
One question I have to administration, I think I know the answer, at least I did when I was active working. This may alleviate a little bit of anxiety that our community and parents have regarding emergency situations, what have you. But don't all of our classrooms still have a phone or a device or some way they can contact the main office? And I know certain folks, and Officer Bowling rolled this out, have assigned walkie-talkies for lead people for emergency situations as well, correct?
Officer Bowling, I think I would be safe to say not 100% have callback capability, but well into the 90%.
All of them have it. Every school has one of the large radios.
No, I'm talking about callback from a classroom, though. Yeah, it would be in the high 90s, but there are those odd situations that don't have callback capability. For instance, a gymnasium might not have callback capability.
Every school has the ability to call out.
Yeah. And we did refresh all of our radios this past cycle so that everybody has communication district-wide, not just within their school.
Any other questions for Mr. Ferris?
Good job.
Great job.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the superintendent leadership team reports, state and federal school report cards.
As Mr. Matthews is coming up today, the joint release from the Department of Education and the Education Oversight of the report cards. Last time we were together, we talked about all of the assessments and where we were as a district on those. I'm not even going to say exactly that the report cards are a reflection on the assessments, because they're really not. There are too many variables in there to say that it's just assessments. It also would say that I think that the yo-yo effect is certainly in place on the report cards because of the growth factor. You grow one year, and then you don't grow. And I'm going to point out before they get there, and I'm going to use Lugoff Elementary as a perfect example. Lugoff Elementary had excellent scores, as you recall from last time we were together, but because they didn't grow from last year, you see what happens when we get there to their overall rating. And so you say, well, what's wrong with Lugoff Elementary? Nothing's wrong with Lugoff Elementary. It's how the metric works makes it difficult to continue to go forward. You hear that from, the schools that score excellent. You hear them all the time. That's almost like the kiss of death is to be listed as an excellent school this year because it's almost impossible to repeat. So with that, we will go to elementary and middle and high school report cards.
Ms. Hallie, Board, Ms. Corner and I will go over this report that you have in front of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Corner first.
Okay, the first slide that you're looking at shows what you have to score at each level to get each rating. As you can see, the 0.5s do round up, just like in math class. And you can see the scores are different for each level. So that's important to note as you look at the overall score, that something in the middle school is excellent. The same score in a high school would be average just because of the way they're calculated and how the indicators work. When you look at elementary and middle, they are the same. There are 5 indicators for elementary and middle schools. The first one is academic achievement, and it says on here it's worth 35 points, which would be 35% because it's out of 100. However, and we'll talk about this more later, this year that indicator was worth at least 40% because we did not get a preparing for success due to the new science standards. So that indicator was at least 40. Now, to add to that, if you are one of the schools listed that does not have a multilingual population, which would be fewer than 20 students, that's going to make academic achievement worth 45 points or 45% of the report card. So that's very important to remember as we go forth. Once again, preparing for success is usually worth 10. Those points were reallocated this year to academic achievement and student progress. Multilingual learners are worth 10 points, and there's 2 ways to get points there. The first one is to meet our interim targets, which ends with the goal of them being proficient in 5 years. Or you can meet English language proficiency, which is a 4.4, and this report card also has the added in there that they have to score a 4 or above in each session. Next year, that is taken out. So if you just get a 4.4 overall, you've met English language proficiency. You don't have to have that 4 for every single subset as well. And you can see there the schools that are listed, they do not have 20 ML students in tested grades, which for elementary would be 3 through 6, all of middle, since they all take SC Ready. Student progress, once again, it says 35. It is worth at least 40 or 40% of the report card. For the schools without ML populations, it is worth 45 points. For student progress, there's 2 indicators in that one as well. The median annual target is the 50th percentile. That means you scored where students did at that certain percentile. But now we have an added value target, and that is different for each student because it's based off how they scored on SC Ready the year before. So a student that scored well the year before, their target would be 55%. If you have a student who scored low on SC Ready, their growth percentile could be 80th percentile. So they have to grow a lot. That is a very rigorous target. And that is, like I said, determined by the previous year's SC Ready scores. And the purpose of that is it is supposed to show the amount of growth each individual student needs to get to grade level expectations by the end of middle school. So that is the overall goal there. And then lastly, we have our school climate. That's 10 points, and that's based off teacher and student perceptions of school climate from a survey. Does anyone have any questions about those indicators? We met the participation goal from the state on all. We don't get as many from the parents, but they're just for reporting, and they don't count. But for the teachers, you have to have 90%, and for the students, you do as well, and we met that in all our schools.
And if you don't get that percentage, you lose 5 points right
Yeah, so-
off the top.
Yeah, so that's a big
So
one.
that's big, and same thing with participation on state testing. There's a certain amount of state participation that you're required to have, and if you don't meet that, -5 right off the top.
And
So-
that's 95%, so we have to make sure we test every child.
So we chase them down.
Do they basically use the same survey every year, or is it changed, or what, for the school climate?
Basically the same
Same,
every year.
okay.
Now, sometimes the questions that they'll target will change every year. It is one of the most convoluted. I could show you, and I'm a math guy, and I could show you the formula, and it curls my hair, and I don't have a lot to curl anymore. If you'll turn the page, you'll see what our overall ratings were in elementary schools. In our elementary schools, we had, and this has been a moving target for us. As of 2 Saturdays ago, we had 1 below basic school. And over the weekend that the hurricane came, those numbers changed. They said they made a mistake, so we take them at their word. So we have 3 schools who are below average, Camden Elementary, Jackson, and Midway. 5 schools who scored average, Blaney, Doby's Mill, North Central, Pine Tree, and Wateree, and then 1 school that scored good, which was Lugoff Elementary. And so we're very proud of our schools who scored average and good. We know that we have a lot we can do. The middle school ratings were all average. Again, we would prefer that they were better. It's interesting that 3 of those schools are tied with the exact same score, which is statistically unusual. Turning the page to the takeaways, all elementary and middle schools, with the exception of 1, if you'll remember the categories, scored average or above average in academic achievement. So that would be in progress for SC Ready. So this is a relative strength overall. We were, however, below the state average in SC Ready and in ELA and math. So that shows you the paradox in the scores and how it's reported. We were below the state average, yet we were average and above average when you look at how we scored in academic achievement. All elementary and middle schools with a multilingual learner cohort, with the exception of 1, Doby's Mill Elementary School, scored below average in that indicator. This shows the need for more support to help these students gain the proficiency. It's interesting that once they gain proficiency, they no longer count in the multilingual cohort. So if you'll think about that for a second, you've got a student who has made the achievement of graduating out of the multilingual cohort. That student by nature would score well on SC Ready, ELA, and math, but we don't count them anymore. We continue to count the students who have not met the target yet. So I'm going to leave that at that. 7 out of 9 of our elementary schools and 3 out of 4 of our middle schools scored average in student progress, but no schools scored above average. So as Mr. McDonald asked last week, 2 weeks ago, what are our plans? Oh, I'm glad you asked, because if you turn the page, yes, sir.
You said at the last meeting, if you're anything, you are non-competitive.
I'm very competitive.
Right. Thank you. I wanted to hear you. So when you go from average, good, average, below average, average, below average, average, good, average, below average, average, there's nowhere that's where we want to be.
No.
So tell me, give me the Ric Flair of how we're getting there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, woo, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I recorded a message for some teachers who can participate in some staff development for us next week. And one of the comments I made in the video was for an organization to continue to improve, it must face the stark realities of what's going on. If we aren't willing to face what's going well and what's not going well, we're never going to get where we want to be. So to that end, these report card scores are mediocre at best. I can't hide that, don't want to hide that. We have to face that. And if we continue to do the phrase I used, if we always do things the way we've always done them, we're always going to get what we always got. And what we got isn't good enough. You know, up there, and I look at it every time I come in here, it says elevate this district into a South Carolina top 10 school district. That's not what we see. That's not where we are. So here's the plan. Number one, we need to educate our principals, and we have, but we need to continue to educate our principals on the in and out of those report card indicators. Number one, where's the low-hanging fruit that we can get quickly, and where are the things that are going to take a little bit more time to do? We progress monitoring student progress. Student learning began in last year with using our math map scores to predict student progress moving towards the added value target. Again, there are two targets. There's the median value target, which is how a student should grow just by getting a year older. You get a year older, you should get a little bit more progress. And then there's the added value target, which the state saw that if all you did was meet the median target every year, if you were below basic in third grade, you were below basic in eighth grade. You never grew beyond that. So what we would like to do is we would like to begin encouraging students to do more than that. So you get the median target, which is the age target, and then you get the target called the added value target, which by the time you reach the eighth grade, like Ms. Corner said just a second ago, you should be at grade level. So even, and that's a big ask. We're talking about our lowest performing kids, and we're expecting them to grow at the 80th percentile. So that's 30% higher than students who are performing on grade level. That's a big ask, but I think we're up to the task. Interestingly enough, for next year, we will not have an added value target in English because we have brand new English standards. So you couldn't compare the test from last year to this year because the standards are different. So those points get shifted to math. Okay. So for ELA this year, we're going to focus on the MVT, the median value target, and how we can get there. We must, in elementary and middle schools, do what we've been doing in high schools for the past 2 years to focus on accountability for individual students. When we track our students' progress towards graduation, and we have meetings next week with our high schools to do their graduation progress. We call it a grad rate protocol. And we meet with those, and Dr. Goodwin goes, Leslie goes, I go, Ms. Goodwin goes, and we go through each grade level. It's called a 9GR. So the 9GR 24 would be this year's, 9th grade. So we'll go through, and we'll go through each student in there. And if Harrison Goodwin is at this point passing all 4 classes, then he's going where we need to. He's on track. He's where he needs to be. But if Dan is not passing all 4 of his classes that he's taken as a freshman, he's taken 3. And well, he's taken 4, but he's not passing 4. He's only passing 3. Then I'm already in the mix. I'm already on the radar. What are we doing? And that's the question at that point. What are we doing for Dan now? We're not going to wait till summer school. We're not going to wait till the end of the semester. We've got to intervene now. So we're doing that with our high schools and with graduation rate and college and career ready. We need to be doing that with our elementary schools and our middle schools on the added value target. We have, tests that we use to do that. For students who are on the who are in intervention, we use iReady for that. We had a meeting with the iReady people this morning. We also use MAP testing at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. So we've got ways to track that. We also have another product we're going to talk about in just a minute. Well, we're going to talk about right now, and that's Mastery Connect. Mastery Connect is something that is being used all over the state, and you may have gotten a phone call from some of your people about Mastery Connect. So let's talk about Mastery Connect for just a little bit. We're sort of late to the party on Mastery Connect. Districts all around us have been using it for some length of time. Mastery Connect is an assessment tool. That's what it is. It doesn't make a prescription, but what it gives us is immediate feedback on what standards a child has mastered. What we asked our teachers to do at the end of last year was to create curriculum maps. And basically, those are pacing guides to go throughout the year. We did those in all core areas, first grade to 12th grade. So every class in a core area has a curriculum map. Then we asked our teachers over the summer to create 2 common assessments. So we got all of our we'll pick on English 2. All of our English 2 teachers gathered at ATEC over the summer, and they created 2 common assessments for each 9 weeks. So in a high school, that would be 2 in the first 9 weeks, 2 in the second 9 weeks. Remember, that's a major assessment, and they have to, by district protocol, give 3 major assessments a 9 weeks. So this is 2 of them. We're not going to mandate all of them, but we are going to mandate that they do 2. And then our teachers created it. In one of our neighboring districts, they got a company to create their common assessments. And we felt at that point when we were creating these assessments that we would have better buy-in from our teachers if we created the assessments. And when I say we create them, there's a item bank of questions, and the questions are of different types, and they are of different rigor levels. And they're called DOK, Webb's Depth of Knowledge. And the state SC Ready and EOCs have a blueprint that tells us what DOK level the questions are. There may be, if there are 20 questions, 2 of them may be DOK level 1, which is the easiest, a little bit harder, DOK level 2. So in DOK level 3, there might be 10 of those, and maybe a few of DOK level 4, which is the most rigorous. What we've been finding is our state test score results don't match how our kids do in classes. So if Meg Matthews was in 6th grade ELA, she may make an A on her report card and do well on her test. And then when Meg takes the SC Ready ELA test, she's scoring meets or approaches. She's not, what she's doing on the SC Ready test isn't matching what we see on SC Ready. So we need to, number one, we need to teach to the rigor of the standard, and that's Mastery Connect gives us that information, and it also allows us to assess at the rigor of the standard, which is what we're doing. We're going to assess at the rigor of the standard. There's nothing wrong with teacher-made tests, but oftentimes teacher-made tests, according to research, are significantly easier than the state tests we've been given. And that gives somebody the false sense of how well they're going to do. To put it in athletic terms, if I always play a bunch of cupcakes, I don't really know how good my team is. I get a false sense of how good my team is. And by the time they get to a really tough opponent, they don't know how to act. They don't know what to do. When we looked at our first round of our results from Mastery Connect, we see, and we can bring you some of that information, but we can see not only what standards our kids are missing, but who in the class are missing those, and we can regroup so we can reteach and then retest. Part of our goal with Mastery Connect, when I was a calculus instructor back in the day, the College Board is very clear on what you should be teaching in AP Calculus. Their standards are very clear. And if I know that Ray Ferris hasn't mastered implicit differentiation and I'm his teacher, if I don't go back and teach him at some point, I'm cheating him because I know it's on the test, he knows it's on the test, and he still doesn't know it. We've got to intervene now with our kids and not wait till late April or April to begin to review for the test, because then you're having to unlearn stuff and learn it right. And it's much more difficult to unlearn something after you've done it over and over and over than it is to correct that at the beginning.
Mr. Matthews, if you don't mind, the old business adage is, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate all this. Here's my question is, without sounding condescending, I have, 2 more months left on school board. And for whoever replaces me and Mr. Irick, what I would think would be awesome is 4 times throughout the year, or at least 2, where you come back and say, before the report card comes out, here's where we are. In other words, you're measuring not just at one time, but you're measuring several times so that you're holding yourself accountable. Because the one thing that I haven't seen, just being honest, is we get the results and here's the next step. But cool, that's awesome. But tell me where you are in June. Tell me where we are in, August, September. Are we on track or are we still below average? That's one of the things that just bothers me as a business person. Once again, I know you can't put business and education together. But I do think that if you're measuring frequently and have some tests in place to say, hey guys, we're on track to be above average, or holy, we're below average again, but you don't know if you're not checking it or measuring. And I think something has to be done to say we're measuring periodically and holding somebody accountable to the standards.
I think that's a really good point. So I'm gonna talk to you about something I'm implementing this year. That's why I asked him, did you want me to take this one? One of the things that I realized coming from a principal role to the role I'm in now, where I get data constantly and I have to sift through it to see what principals need, is sometimes looking at it now, there were some rules I didn't know, or some cheats, to use a gaming tool, that I didn't know. So one of the things that I'm working on with principals is I'm taking each indicator and I'm gonna do an in-depth video on that indicator as step 1 to make sure they really understand where every point in that indicator comes from. So I think that's step 1. We gotta get everybody on the same page. So I've sent them the holistic one out already. I'm working on academic achievement now. And these will be like 10-minute professional learning activities, and then they can call me and schedule a time to meet. I'll go out there and talk to their leadership team. I'm going to a faculty meeting Monday, actually. She wants me to talk to the whole faculty. After that, we're going to start looking at those added value targets, because when, like he said, that is the quickest way that we can get more points, is those added value targets. So I've already sent every principal, every single student where they are right now, and what their target has to be on winter map and spring map to meet the added value growth and how to calculate that. So I used a new program. It's called Scribe. I don't know if that's one that you're familiar with. But what Scribe does is I get on my computer and I do something that I want you to do. And I don't have to say a word. And I just had jaw surgery, so that worked great because I couldn't talk for 5 days. It was my family's best 5 days of their life. So I get on my computer and I do what I want you to do. And it records it. But not only that, it gives written instructions, in-depth instructions. So I went on there and showed everyone how to pull those added value targets and then how to go into MAP and set a goal for winter that would be the equivalent of that target. So when those students take MAP in the winter, which comes up November, they will know, is that student meeting the added value target by looking at what they score on MAP. And then when they do that, I will send out another sheet and say, okay, every child, this is their median target, this is their AVT, this is where they are now. So these are the students we still need to work on because they're not on track to meet that. So it is something that we've thought about and that I've started working on.
So the measurement, what you're doing is awesome. It's only as good as what you do with that.
Right.
What I'm saying is you have the measurement and then you go, okay, we'll just wait until the end of the year. In other words, if you don't take those measurements and go, wait a minute, Mr. Irick, who was always below me in school, if you don't say, okay, he's behind, right? Or
One grade.
it's just one grade. But if you're not addressing that and saying, okay, we're measuring it and we're managing it, right? So I love what you're doing. But if you're not actively involved, so I'll bring this up to you. A couple of years back, I was asked to be an advisor to the lugoff-elgin High School counselors, where they were talking about, they had a plan that they were working on. And I asked this question: what are you doing for the Matthews kid who's just not like the corner kid who's always A's, but just gets behind on one grade and another grade? And their answer was, we don't have the data or the software to keep up with that quickly. And by the time the grades come out, it's too far behind, right? So my thing is, the moment we can see, test, and say, we got to jump on this quickly, is the moment we start changing kids' lives.
That's what our in the high schools, that's what our grad rate protocol does. And we've seen the benefit of that because we are talking granularly down to the student in the grade and finding out why. Why is Charles King doing so well and Dan Matthews is not? Is it absences? Because if he's not here, we can't teach him. Is it illness? Is it because he was behind when he got here? Did he come from somewhere else? What was it that got him there? And how are we intervening? That's the question we asked our principals.
But I guess my question is, how quickly in real time can we address that?
We do it with the high schools at the end of every 9 weeks.
That's the problem I have, is I think by the time the 9 weeks ends, it's too late. And I'm trying to figure out if Miss Corner, who's a junior in high school, has had a divorce in her family, and so she's missed a couple of things. That to me should be a couple of grades of 0s, 60s, whatever, should be something that's an instant red flag that we go, wait a minute, something's out of the ordinary here that we should jump on. I'm just throwing that out there to us as educators, is if we're waiting to the end of the 9 weeks, we're too far behind.
And I think that's what Mastery Connect does, because instantaneous love, you might make a 95 in Mastery Connect, but there's one standard that you didn't get. So that gives me the opportunity at that moment. I know that just like that, the second you finish the test, that I need to remediate you on that one standard. And so I think that program gives us that instantaneous feedback where we can do that, which is why, and I know that the tests are rigorous. I have 2 children that are still in schools here. I have an elementary and a middle school. And when they came home after taking the test, they were like, that test was hard. But when they came to me a week later, they said their teacher worked with them. Oh, now I understand that. So I know I'll do better next time. So I think that's what our teachers are going to use that for after we get used to that program and we get it where we want it to be.
So what are some examples of how you do intervene? Like you realize there's a problem and little Johnny or Susie is not doing what they're supposed to. You said we need to intervene. How do you intervene? A class of 25 students, 7-hour day, lunch, recess, related arts, whatever.
It depends on what the issue is. If the issue is an academic issue, all of our elementaries and middle schools have what's called win time, what I need. And that's built into their classroom day. And they are allowed at that point. Some of those kids go to Seagull. Some of those kids go to resource classes. Some of those kids do everything, but you have kids who are still in your class, and that's your time to remediate those kids, to reteach those kids. So I know specifically, and I'll use math, that I've got a group over here that did not master subtraction of fractions with unlike denominators. Well, I know that that group needs to be over here. I need to go over there with them. I've got another group over here that didn't get fraction multiplication. So I've got a group over here that's working on that. And during that time, and that's every day, I can remediate those kids as we move through that. If it's a divorce, if it's an SEL kind of thing, we have guidance counselors, we have social workers, we have RBHS counselors who can meet with those kids to help address those things. Our social workers have done a remarkable job. We have 4 in our district. We could use 9, but they do yeoman's work of going to meet with parents at their houses if they have attendance issues, if they have, they help get them the help they need that we can't provide them any other way due to lack of resources. They can get them to resources. If we have a McKinney-Vento kid who's homeless, they have the ability through Mr. Ferris's office to give them some of the resources that they might not have otherwise.
Dan, can I ask a question?
You can ask anything.
All right, I'm pretty simple minded, so I'm gonna ask a question. These indicators, how long have they been in place?
Since we've had a school report card, but they change frequently.
All right, my question is gonna be, I'm not picking, trust me, I'm not picking. We had indicators and we had a plan back in 21, 22. You had a plan then, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, we have one in 22, 23.
Yes, sir.
Now we're gonna have a new plan in 23, 24.
Not a new plan. We're adding stuff to the plan. Some
Okay,
of
what I'm trying to say is that when I go back to 21, 22, whatever the plan was, need to be improved then as well. So we're now in 24, 25, the plan is going to be improved, an improved plan, like Mr. McDonald saying, and some of the rest of them. You may have look at students' overall grading or ratings midway through the school year, give you an indicator. Is that right? That's what I'm understanding.
well, and
So my point is, as I read this, from my benefit of reading these ratings, there's a little bit of up and down that disturbs me. But one, maybe I'm not picking on one, but one went too far down. And your plan has got to, that school or maybe some other schools have been in that situation for a while.
yes, sir.
We've got to have a plan somewhere to quit digging and get out of the hole. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, because I shoot, tell it like what I'm thinking, and so we've got to have, whatever we do, we've got to get it where our kids are improving consistently.
I do not
This way,
disagree.
and then that way, they do that in football, they dodge left and right. I don't want to be dodging up and down all around, so. But you understand what I'm saying when I ask as I look at this, is
Yes, sir.
nothing consistent necessarily on it.
And
I appreciate you listening to me, that's just my thought.
I understand. I taught a lot of good lessons, but they weren't all good. And I can think of times when I thought what I said to them was awesome. And when the kids walked out of the room and they came back in the next day, I don't know how many of y'all have seen the movie Billy Madison, but there's a scene in Billy Madison where the guy who's running the game says, we're all dumber for having listened to what you just said. And sometimes my kids, they didn't hear what I was saying, and I swear I thought when they came back the next day, they didn't know what they had the day before. And it wasn't because what I was saying was inaccurate. It was accurate, but I had to change something, and it was a year-to-year thing where I have to meet my kids where they are, or in this position I have to meet my principals where they are and educate them to be sure that they understand what Dr. Goodwin's holding them accountable, what y'all are holding me accountable for, and what I'm holding me accountable for. And every year we're going to tweak that lesson plan just a little bit because sometimes our players change every year, and we have to play with the players that we have. And for us to get better, we need, number one, we need our teachers to have the information they need to make in-course corrections. And sometimes that hasn't been available to them like it is now. And we need our principals to make those in-course corrections and to be knowledgeable about what they have to do to hold their teachers accountable. And if they're not doing that, that's a
And
topic for
nobody
another
else-
day.
Nobody else has done this, I guess, but what can we do to help, just as a question, as a school board, what can we do to help? I'm not asking you to answer that tonight. I'm just saying at some point in time as you make your plans
Yes, sir.
and you move forward, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is what can we do to help as far as the school board? And I think that would be beneficial to y'all as y'all go forward.
So Mr.
That's
Blackman,
just another comment.
let me piggyback on that. I actually think that what we could do to help you is to say, because I just flipped ahead to the high school. So we just had this for the first time tonight.
Right, because they were embargoed and we
I get
couldn't
it.
release them.
Flipped ahead to the high school stuff. I think that what we could do, and Dr. Goodwin, please chime in on this, but I think that from our standpoint, the best thing that the board could do was say, give us a report 6 months from now and tell us how are we in line for 2025? Are we on track to be better? Because when I jumped at the high school just now, which is did not give me feel good feelings, is to say, okay,
Me neither.
so for 2025, pick 6 months, pick 3 months, and say we're doing a quarterly report or a 6-month report to say, here's where we are, and let's hold ourselves accountable. I think if you said to the board as administrators, we're coming back to you in 6 months with updated data, as opposed to a year from now and we go, hey, here we are again. Because if you report to the board and it's the same data, then something's not working. If the results that you're wanting to get is working and it's slightly better, great. But as Mr. Blackman said, what can the board do? I think the biggest thing the board can do is say, let's break it down into smaller segments and give us an update on the standards of what you're doing to progress on that. And if it's money, then that's a board thing. If it's policy, that's a board thing. But at the same time, if it's a standard, it's up to us to make sure that you guys are following the standard that we've set is such a high standard for us.
Okay. Moving forward on
Hold
the
on.
last two bullet
Hold on
points.
before you flip.
Yes, sir.
And before we move on to high schools, I certainly agree with everything that's been said around the table. But you know, one of the hardest things to do is to wake up and face the brutal facts. And the brutal facts are, we've been teaching really, really hard. Our teachers have taught. They're teaching the wrong stuff. And we've been saying that since I've been here, and we've been trying to guide and ease people in the right direction. And the bottom line is, they didn't take guidance. They took the hammer of the first time they gave a Mastery Connect test, and it said, these are the standards that your students should have mastered by this date. And, oh, my child's making an A in the class. You know, that's what the parent says, my child's making an A. And they made a 72 on that Mastery Connect. It can't be a fair assessment. It's fair. It's fair for what should have been taught. And we're all responsible to teach the right stuff. I'm not throwing it off on anybody, but until people wake up and realize that just teaching hard isn't the answer, teaching the right stuff is the answer.
So how do we fix that?
All right, how do you fix that? How do you fix that? You go and you take that Mastery Connect test, and you go, oh my gosh, I got 3 major standards that my kids are behind on. You reteach, you use the win time. We talk about resources. We have given our teachers and our principals a train load of resources. Win time being one of the best. Time is the best resource. Reteach, and let's not forget that other component that we have in there, which is retest. Because in our Mastery Connect plan, we say not only do you need to take the test one time, you need to analyze the results, teacher, classroom teacher, which is very easy to do, reteach, and then retest. And which test counts? The second one counts because you've done the instruction. So, but we don't always want to do that because we always want to feel good. Now, at some point, we've got to decide, do we want, as Kershaw County School District, to feel good, or do we want to be good? And I think the people around this table want to be good. So when we get the phone call that my child made a 72 on the Mastery Connect test, then the question becomes, okay, what happened after the reteaching and the retest? And if the answer is, well, I don't know, then that's a problem in itself. If the test wasn't re-given, that's a problem in itself. If there was no reteaching, that's a problem. But the question doesn't need to become, is the test valid? The test bank is well tested in our state. I mean, if you look at hard-charging, high-achieving school districts in our state, they've been using Mastery Connect for a number of years to do just what you were talking about, Mr. McDonald, which is quick, instantaneous feedback so that you can correct the problem so that you don't wait. Because if we wait, and I agree completely, if you wait till the end, you'll never get there. Some of you know that I live with an English teacher who teaches AP English. She gives a benchmark on a regular basis. If those scores don't come back where they need to be, it's, guess what? We got to go backwards. We got to pick up what we have because we can't build on a bad foundation. Each thing is a piece of the foundation that's got to be put together. And that's the piece that we're missing. We're not missing teachers that teach hard. They teach hard. We're missing how do you instruct the right stuff. And that's not just up to teachers. That's up to principals too, to understand. Now, I don't expect a principal right off the top of their head to be able to explain how the student, the improvement metric works and the added value. Quite honestly, it becomes Greek as you get in there. But I can look real easy and say, my kid took a 20-question test and 3 standards were weak, and I need to fix those. And then I have to trust the system that we've done a good enough job aligning those tests with that so that we know that it happens at the end of the year. So I don't want us to beat up our principals and teachers and our district level folks on one side, but on one side, I think we have to be honest with each other because the results are not what they need to be. The results are downright, in some cases, embarrassing, just to be honest, especially given the resources that we give to our schools. So before we go into high school, I wanted to comment on that because it's going to show in the high school when we turn the page. It's going to be exactly the same thing. Now, there are different things to fix at the high schools, and that's a little bit crazy in itself is the difference in the things that we fix. But I'll be happy to take any questions, and I'll get off my soapbox, I promise.
Well, I do have a question. When it shows, it is on. When it shows that it needs to be retaught, and then there will be the retest, how long are we waiting between we're seeing it's being retaught to retest?
It should be within the next few days. You can't wait long, because if you wait long, again, I revert to math. If I learn the wrong way to do something, and I keep doing it the wrong way, then all I'm doing is reinforcing poor habits. And so that needs to happen within the next few days, and then the retest is shortly following that. I'll be honest, I had a parent call me from a school that said their student took a Master Connect test on Friday and then took the retest on Monday. Well, that's a problem because there was no reteaching. You can't test and retest without having some reteaching in there. Otherwise, we've defeated the whole purpose. And so we've spoken to that principal about that, and he's corrected that with that teacher. We've got to do reteaching, and that is best done in small groups with the teacher doing the teaching and correcting the misunderstanding. Software packages are really good, but they'll never replace a high-quality teacher in the classroom.
The Mastery Connect, did you say that they have to take the test, then you teach, and then you retest?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the score that is accepted is the second score. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When do you know? Does that come out on Canvas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you've seen the test, but how if you don't ever see?
The retest, you just overwrite that score,
Okay.
the original score.
All right.
And as a parent, I can tell you, I knew the second it was put in because I got a ding on my phone.
Okay.
All right, so now we'll talk about the indicators on the high school report card, which are a lot different. Academic achievements, 25 points, and that is based off our English 2 and our Algebra 1 end-of-course exams. Preparing for success is 10 points, and that's based off Biology 1 and our U.S. History end-of-course exams. School climate is 5, which is based off our teacher and student surveys. Then we have our multilingual progress, and that's 10 points, and that is the same as elementary and middle. Those same 2 targets. All of our high schools had an ML population this year. Grad rate is worth 19 points, and that's our 4-year percentage. They take the number of the students in the cohort, that's the denominator, how many graduate is the numerator, and then they get the percentage, and that's the grad rate. High school success is a new one, so that's one we definitely need to make sure we're educated on. That's worth 12 points. Percent on track to graduate within 4 years, or who had a successful outcome in 5. Now, for this year's report card that we're looking at now, for last year, that was first year on track to graduate and the 5-year success. This upcoming year, it's going to have first year on track to graduate and second year on track to graduate and the 5-year. So they're going to add a year for the next couple of years. And then lastly, we have our college and career readiness, which is worth 19 points. Just so you're aware of the different options, as you see our scores for college and career ready. College ready options that we currently have in Kershaw County, scores a composite. I know it's kind of out of order. Did you do it that way on purpose?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. The first option is to score a composite score of 20 or higher on the ACT, or you can score a 10/20 or higher on the SAT, score a 3 or higher on an advanced placement exam, and completes at least 6 credit hours in dual enrollment. Now, I can tell you I had a child that graduated last year. She's in college as a freshman. These are really rigorous for a lot of our students. Probably the easiest way to get denoted as college ready would be the dual enrollment, to be honest, out of those. But those are really rigorous ways, which you'll see the percentages even statewide are low on that one. Now, career ready options in Kershaw County School District, as you'll see, this is something we're doing really well at. You can be a CTE completer or earn a national industry credential or a state industry credential like your OSHA credential. Earn a level 3 credential or above on the WIN test. You can get a scale score of 31 or higher on the ASVAB. Successfully complete a state-approved work-based learning exit evaluation from an employer, Or if you're identified as a student with a disability and you earn your South Carolina high school employability credential. That would be for non-diploma students only.
Our overall scores are Camden High School was below average this year. Lugoff and North Central were both average in their report cards. High school takeaways, 2 out of 3 schools scored below average in academic achievement. Algebra 1 scores greatly contributed, as you saw last time, and are below the state average. We are at state average for English 2. All 3 high schools scored below average in preparing for success, which are biology and U.S. history end of course exams, and they were also below the state average. All 3 high schools scored below average in the multilingual learner progress. This, again, as it mimics what you saw in the elementary schools, shows the need for more support for these students. Our graduation rates are holding steady. We saw improvements at 2 of our high schools, at Camden and Lugoff. North Central's dropped slightly. Our high school success rates would improve greatly by improving our Algebra 1 performance. This was an issue with our on track to graduate in our 9th grade, and so we have to address that. Also in our on track to graduate is our attendance is causing students to not get credit for a class. As you know, in our 4x4 block scheduling, you can miss 5 classes. You can miss 5 days. After that 5th day, they must be a lawful absence, which is illness with a doctor's excuse, bereavement, or a recognized religious observance, or a principal excuse day. Those are the only reasons you can be allowed. And if you go beyond that, even with validation, there's a limit to how many days you can make up. And I remember standing in front, and I'm sure Ms. Corner did the same thing, in front of our 9th graders and ask them to repeat after me. This is not middle school. Your attendance will cause you to lose credit if you miss too many days. And unfortunately, we have some students who don't believe that. And consequently, and to be honest, that's really not the issue in middle school or elementary school, because you're not held accountable for a Carnegie unit of credit. So students don't understand that and lose credit for a class because they miss too many days. We are working very hard to get that message across, that attendance, and as we've talked about before with our chronic absenteeism rate. And that's a statewide issue, but I'm not really concerned about the state. I'm concerned about us. We're averaging about 23% as a chronic absenteeism rate. That's any student who misses 10% of the number of days in a year. So that they missed at minimum 18 days.
Mr. Matt, let me pick on you for a second.
Pick
'cause
on me.
What's your background?
Mathematics.
So the phrase high school success would be improved by decreasing the failure rates of Algebra 1.
Correct.
How?
We
That's my question. So you were a great math teacher, okay? Yeah, pick on
Depends
some
on
of
who
our.
you talk to.
That's right. Yeah, pick on folks like David Caldwell and the great. So here's my question: how do we decrease the failure rates in Algebra 1?
I think there's a twofold issue there. I think. Oh, it's embarrassing. As a math teacher, I'm embarrassed. But the twofold issue, number one, is we have to prepare them better in the middle schools. And if you remember back 2 weeks ago, if you looked at those cohort progressions, you can see that their performance in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, system-wide, isn't good. So that's the product that they're getting. They're getting kids who are not prepared for that step. So that's number one, is we need to improve the instruction in the middle schools. Number two, we need to do, as Dr. Goodwin said a little bit, just a second ago, we need to do a better job of teaching the right stuff. And we have teachers who, and not to pick on Lugoff-Elgin High School, Lugoff-Elgin High School has done very well with their Algebra 1. Very well. They've led the district for several years in a row. We need, whatever they're doing, and we've sent teachers over there, but we have to hold them accountable for what they're doing in the classroom. And, Master Connect, and we're not going to put all our irons in that fire. That's not the cure-all. That's not the panacea for everything, but it is a tool that we haven't had before. And so recognizing, again, and high schools get 90 minutes a period. That's plenty of time to teach what you need to do and then have small groups to work, to break that up. I know Dr. Goodwin needs to work on that. Ms. Halley needs to work on that. Dr. King needs to work on that. And there are other people who have those same problems in their instruction, same deficiencies, so I can group them appropriately. And if it is that 80% of my class didn't master a specific standard, that's not an intervention problem. That's a core instructional problem. And we need to address that as fixing that core instructional problem. So, our college and career ready rates are well above the state average. Camden High's improved 16%, Lugoff's improved 4%, and North Central's improved 6.7%. So kudos to our career development facilitators and guidance counselors for helping do that. Our plan of action, very similar to what we talked about with the elementary schools and middle schools as far as professional learning for our leadership teams. We've got to focus on that on track to graduate metric more, because now it's not just one grade, but it's 2 grades. And the metric is at the end of the 9th grade, you should have passed 6 classes, one of which is math and one of which is English, which is what our promotion policy says you have to do. That's our board policy, says that's what you have to do to go from 9th grade to 10th grade. Pass 6, one is math, one is English. But next year, we're including the 10th grade in there. So that's 12 classes, 2 of which is math, 2 of which must be English, and a science. Now, that's the science is in our board policy. That's not part of the state plan. But you have to pass 12, 2 of which are math and 2 of which are English. So again, when we meet next week to talk about, that grad rate protocol, where are your people at? And what are we doing to get, if they're not on track, if Leslie's not on track, how am I getting her back on track? What am I doing between this semester and next? If there's a course she's missing, I need to address that before second semester starts. If she's down in math, then that class needs to be in her schedule for next semester. Otherwise, I haven't given her the chance to get back on track. And, by the time they're a senior, they have less flexibility than they do as a freshman and a sophomore. And when they got freshmen and sophomore, there's room in their schedules to move stuff around. And by the time they get to senior, a lot of that is locked in at that point. EOC prep, looking at other schools like ours, it doesn't do me any good to take a group to Fort Mill High School. Fort Mill High School isn't like us. They don't look like us. They don't have the demographics we do. They don't have the poverty index we do. But there are schools that are doing better than we are. We can look at Lancaster County. Lancaster County, if you remember back to last 2 weeks ago, Lancaster County did very well. So we need to go to Indian Land. We need to go to up the street to AJ and talk to them, see what they're doing. Take our teachers. Greenwood 55 does very well. So we need to go. We have dedicated, like they have win time in the elementary and the middle schools. They don't have that in the high schools. They have a power hour at lunch. So there's time at lunch for students to get remediation. Okay, and that's what that time is dedicated for. And then of course Mastery Connect. questions?
Yes.
The power hour, is it required?
Yes, sir.
If students need that remediation?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And
secondly,
they do, and if they don't need remediation, generally they have clubs or they have something else that they can do.
right.
Right.
Second was
If they are not where they need to be, remediation is mandatory.
Yep, easy question. The next one, I'm ashamed I don't recall this, but the middle schoolers who take Algebra 1, English 1, does that factor into the high schools or stay at the middle
No,
school?
that used to count in the high schools,
That's what I
but that
thought.
does not, that's separated. So not so much in English 1 because the test is English 2 now, but in Algebra 1, we've taken 60 kids, your top scoring 60 kids out of the high schools. So that's not part of the metric. That's no excuse.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, both of you. Good information. It was excellent. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss resignations and retirements of certified and classified personnel?
So moved.
I'm not through. Employment of certified and classified personnel, and assignment changes and transfers of certified and classified, and the superintendent's evaluation.
So moved.
Okay. Motion was made by Ms. McDonough and second by Dr. King. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposers? We're not in executive session. Is there a motion to reconvene to? Motion was made by Coach Blackman and second by Mr. Roberts that we reconvene. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposers? Okay, no. In executive session, we discussed resignations and retirement of certified and classified personnel, employment of certified and classified personnel, and assignment changes and transfers of certified and classified personnel, and superintendent's evaluation. Is there a motion to accept administration's recommendation concerning employment matters?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Dr. King and second by Tom McDaniel that we accept the administrative recommendations concerning employment. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I have a motion. I hereby move that we vote to send a formal complaint to the State Board of Education requesting that appropriate action be taken against employee A, professional employee of the Kershaw County School District, who pursuant to South Carolina Code annotated section 5925-530, breached their employment contract with the district and failed to report to work.
The motion was made by Mr. Irick and second by, that we accept the recommendation of employment A. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposers? Motion carries. Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chairman, I hereby move that we vote to send a formal complaint to the State Board of Education requesting that the appropriate action be taken against employee B, a professional employee of Kershaw County School District who, pursuant to South Carolina Code annotated section 59-25-530, breached their employment contract with the district and failed to report to work.
Motion was made by Mr. McDonald, second by Ms. Furness. All those in favor of accepting the administrative recommendation for concerning employment B, please let me know by saying aye. Aye. Any opposers? The motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Madam Chairman, before we adjourn, I want to just make a comment for the record, especially for guys like Matt and I as we get closer to our December where it's emotional. I found out tonight that my middle son was coming into town for supper, and so it'd be really easy for guys like Matt and I to skip out quickly. And we belayed that to go through the dynamics of our education because it's so important. And to ask the questions that we asked, one of the things that I've always found with this board that's always moved me is not just how great we get along, but how great we disagree with each other. And the passion that we have for education. No one fights harder than Ron Blackman. I love him. We disagree better than most folks get along, but we fight for the same thing. And I'm just enamored right now at thinking about how we took our time tonight to discuss education and the plans forward. And I appreciate this board's time tonight. Appreciate Matt sticking out with, because we could easily just be short timers, and we're not, because we care about Kershaw County, we care about this school district. And with that, good night.
Just let me say one thing. I appreciate both your servants' hearts, and I have sat beside you, between you, to the left and to the right, and thank you for the service that you don't think it has not gone unnoticed. Thank you very much. Star. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
The motion was made by Ms. Furness and second by, I'm sorry, y'all. Give me a moment, please. Mr. Irick, that we adjourn. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can we adjourn with prayer? Heavenly Father, this evening we thank you for your presence this evening. We thank you, Lord, for the strength of this board. We thank you, Lord, to be good listeners. But as we leave here this evening, Lord, but never from your divine presence, we ask that you lead us safely back home. and we will find all is well, and we'll give you all honor and glory that is due you. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.